1996 Toyota Corolla, 200,000 miles, just your typical aunt grandma car. Runs, drives, it's been sitting for quite a long time, so it's gonna have to have tires. That one goes flat in like 5 minutes. But yeah, I think it has the bigger engine, which is a 1.8. There was a 1.8 and a 1.6 in these years. I don't really know how to tell. I don't know a whole lot about these cars, except they last kind of forever, and every aunt and grandma has one. It does say right there 1.8. So hopefully that's actually what's in here, because that'd be cool. But yeah, got to do a few things right off the bat before I can even mess with it at all, really. The belts squeal crazy bad. So I got to figure out what that is, see if it's belts or a pulley or whatever. I also noticed it's out of coolant. So maybe that's the water pump squealing, I don't know. And then I pulled the radiator cap, and it's pretty interesting. I've never seen this before, but all the guts for the cap are in the radiator. That's pretty weird. Hopefully there's nothing strange in the coolant system that made the plastic disintegrate. When I bought the car this morning, the door would open from the outside, but not the inside, and now it doesn't do either one. Besides being dirty, it's not bad. The interior isn't ripped up or anything like that. Has an aftermarket radio. Has a tack. That's kind of cool. Alright, well, I'm working on the Corolla. I've ordered a whole bunch of parts for it. I was kind of on the edge of what I wanted to do and not do. The engine has a knock. Pulled the valve cover, checked valve clearance, or the lifter clearance, whatever you want to call it, the shims. Everything was good. So that means we've got a lower end knock. I pulled the oil pan, which is a huge job on a Corolla. A lot more than I thought. There's an upper oil pan and a lower oil pan. And the upper one, man, that thing is super difficult to do. Anyway, it's all apart. Pulled off one of the rod caps. Looks pretty good. Typically, if you've got one that's really worn out and knocking, like making actual rod knock, you can move the thing and hear it. I didn't feel that on any of them. So I'm already in here. We're going to go ahead and replace all the rod bearings. Alright, it is super chilly out here, so got the heater and stuff like that going. Whole bottom end is torn apart. There's the lower oil pan and the upper oil pan. And this thing was disgusting. A ton of the time was just cleaning this nasty stuff. So down here, you can see obviously the crankshaft there, and the one rod cap that I have pulled apart. There's a small ring you can see around the crank journal, but really it's not bad. Small ring in here, but like I said, it's not bad. With no glove, you cannot catch a fingernail on that. So that one is totally fine. I'm going to go ahead and do them all, like I said, since I'm in here. And then while we're at it, we're going to do the oil pump, which is this whole assembly right here, the whole front of the motor piece. And since we have to pull all of the accessories and the timing belt off to do that, we're going to go ahead and do a full timing set. So this Corolla is going to get all kinds of work. Hopefully it's worth it. But there's not a whole lot else that could be knocking in here and making that noise. I mean, maybe there's a couple other things. I guess it could be like piston slap or something, and I don't really think that's the case. So I'm going to look up inside here, see if I can look at the skirts of the pistons, see if they have all their pieces. There wasn't any large piston chunks in the oil pan when I took it apart, so I don't think we're going to see anything like that there. Well, hopefully we don't, but man, take a look at that grime. So that is just some of the stuff that was all over everything. So I'm spending a ton of time just cleaning this thing, so that way when I have the engine open, it isn't getting just full of disgusting stuff. I did go ahead and get tires mounted on these wheels. I was hoping I had wheels that would just bolt right on from that Corsica, but they didn't. But anyway, I bought these like 2 years ago. Like I said, only ran them like a lap. Well, no. 10 laps. 10 laps on dirt with these. So they're pretty much in perfect shape. But had them mounted up. They should fit on there just fine. And then we're going to do a lift kit as long as the engine runs and doesn't destroy itself. But anyway, so just top hat spacers for all 4 struts. And then if we want more lift, I may do a subframe drop, front and back. But yeah, that's pretty much how we're looking. So I'm going to get to work getting these rod bearings done. Well, I got all the rod bearings done and went ahead and started pulling apart the rest of everything else so we can get the timing set and the oil pump done. The engine is now being held in by CV axles and one motor mount, because I had to remove this one to get to all that extra stuff down there. There's how everything looks inside there. That water pump made a massive mess. I drained the radiator, and that did not help. This thing was puked coolant all over the place, but really not a lot of carbon deposits and no sludge in this thing. So, I don't know, should be okay once you get it back together. All right, well, most of the bottom end is back together. New rod bearings and oil pump and all that kind of stuff. New water pump, and that is kind of a pain in the butt. Water pump is pretty difficult to do. It just barely fits between the body, the unibody, there, the frame, and the engine. But that's back in. The oil pump is in. Upper oil pan about to go back in with the lower oil pan there. And the last piece I'm waiting on to get the timing set back together, all this stuff here, is a camshaft seal. So there was some oil leaking down from there, so I want to go ahead and do it while I'm in here. So as soon as that comes in, hopefully sometime today, timing set can go back together, the whole front end of the engine can go back together, and then tomorrow I'll put oil in it, and we'll do a first fire up then. I'm going to wait for that because it's super cold outside, and I know the RTV is not going to be cured. I think it takes 24 hours on a regular day, and it's super chilly. So, yep, that's where we're at. Hopefully this thing will fire up tomorrow, and as long as everything is well, then we can start on other stuff like suspension, cooling system, and all that. I did end up reusing the original oil pump, so the one that I ordered was wrong. It was like 25 bucks. It was kind of a cheaper part, and the next most affordable one was like $120, and I just don't want to spend $120 on a part that isn't really necessary. I was just going to do it because I was down there. But we are going to test oil pressure on startup. I'll hook an oil pressure gauge up to it. That way we can make sure everything is good. I did go ahead and fully disassemble the oil pump and checked everything. It wasn't perfect, but the tolerances were within acceptable ranges. They definitely didn't fail any of the tests. Well, the engine is pretty much together. Timing system and all that is on. And it's been a little less than 24 hours, but right at that. So all the RTVs should be cured, and the oil pans and all that stuff. So next up, we're going to see if it can build oil pressure, and if it does, I'll plug some things in, and then we'll see what it sounds like. So right now, fuel and spark are both disconnected. I've got 4 quarts of oil in there, and we're going to see if we can build oil pressure. So here I've got the oil pressure gauge hooked up. A lot of things are disconnected right now. O2 sensors, fans, water pump, none of the other belts are on. So yeah, we're literally just cranking for oil. There we go. All right, so we're 20 PSI, 30 PSI, 40, 50. Nice, that's awesome. 55 PSI while cranking. That means we can go ahead and hook up fuel and spark, and we can run this thing. I don't see any leaks right now, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the oil sending unit disconnected still and just have this gauge on here. And we're not going to run it very long. There's no coolant in it right now. The car runs exactly like it did before, which I guess is kind of good news. Doesn't run any worse than it did before, but the car ran fine in the first place. We were trying to get rid of a knock, so man, that is frustrating to do all that work and the engine is still knocking, and I don't know why. This is going to be a weird one for sure. I don't know where that knocking could be coming from. I really don't. The rod bearings were fine to begin with, which threw me off a little bit. There wasn't any play in the caps. I went ahead and replaced the bearings anyway. They didn't look terrible. There were really only 2 sets that had like wear that I would say is unacceptable wear. Okay, that one's got a pretty good bit of wear. And then I think it was cylinder 4 that was the worst. Something got in that bearing. And wore a groove in it. That was pretty substantial, but the rest really weren't that bad. So I don't know where this knocking could be coming from. There's nothing going on in the top end. That was the very first thing that I checked. I pulled the valve cover and I checked valve clearance between the shims, and everything was perfectly fine. So there is something else going on. Maybe it could be like a torque converter bolt. I really doubt that. I'm gonna go ahead and put the whole car back together, get the exhaust back on, and maybe we can diagnose that sound a little bit better afterwards. I've got to do a radiator because this one leaks and stuff like that. So I'll have to do some auxiliary work that doesn't pertain to the knock just to get it in a good running and driving condition so I can diagnose it. So that's kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. Go ahead and keep moving and see what we can figure out. I did replace the driver's side transmission mount because it was super bad. But that was the only extra thing that I did. Oh, let me get my bill of sale back in the glove box before it blows away. All right, one thing that I had to do on the interior side stuff. I've got a new door handle. This one was broken, and something in the lock mechanism is destroyed. So no matter how hard you pulled up on this, it would not unlock the vehicle. You couldn't open it from the inside or the outside. So I had to bend the rod and keep it in an up fixed position so it couldn't go down anymore. Yeah, I need to feel out the struts and stuff like that. Figure out what all we're gonna want to do before the Gambler. I used to not focus on suspension that much, and now I know. I mean, it's a huge deal. So if anything, if the struts need to be replaced, I'll buy some like $10 ones off Rock Auto or something like that. Well, it is working. I'm going to put the camera down and go on a little bit longer cruise. As you can see, the Corolla is coming along nicely. Levi at Midlow Metalworks did the bumper over the weekend, threw it together super fast, and it is cool. I think he had it together like in a couple of hours. It's definitely more sturdy than the rest of the car, and the most important thing was it allowed us to mount our winch. So Gambler 500 stuff, you can run just about anything. I really like to have a winch when you're running a garbage vehicle, because then you can have the confidence that you can do some pretty stupid stuff and you'll probably be okay. And we like to do stupid stuff. But we are going to work on alignment today, inner and outer tie rods. So the inner tie rods are toast. You can like wiggle the wheel all around when you lift it up. All right, take a look at how bad these inner tie rods are. Got the vehicle off the ground. Look at the fender for reference. See how much this wheel is moving. Yeah, that's a lot of movement. I mean, at least half an inch. And it's like that on both sides. That's from the inner tie rods. But that's pretty much it. Besides the tie rods, the vehicle is fully functional and ready to go. If we have extra time, we may do some more cool stuff like roof rack or, I don't know, sliders or more lights or something. This will be the first Gambler 500 the Corolla has made it to. The event I originally started building it for, I didn't get to go to, but here is how it sits right now. Got a small lift kit on it, lots of recovery gear because it is two-wheel drive and not very tall. Pretty basic winter tires, roof rack, bumper, and a winch. It is singing the song of the Corolla people. Got it all loaded up and we're ready to go. Got my trash picker-upper and all the good stuff that we need. Installed an inverter yesterday. About to get on the road. Should be about 2 hours to base camp and shenanigans and dinner.
got the other.
Yeah.
Well, we've hit a few waypoints today. We're on the way to what I think is a water waypoint, so pretty excited about that. It is wicked hot out here. Buddy Brandon just had to peel off though and head down to a mechanic shop about an hour away. He had some front end damage on his 4Runner that we couldn't fix here. I gave it a shot, but bent and rusty parts just weren't fixable on the side of the road is what we had. So he is going to get that fixed, and hopefully we'll see him at base camp. Alright, so some of the guys got stuck. It was a pretty hairy section full of sand. I think that's where it was at, so decided to go ahead and turn back. See if I can find him. Yeah, here it is. This is a pretty bad spot. I don't know, we definitely could have made it. I drove quite a bit further back in there, and there was some cool stuff for sure. First sand of the whole trip. That's fun.
Definitely got a chance of getting stuff down here for sure. We're not careful.
Oh yeah, I was dragging bottom big time up that hill.